Do you ever feel stuck in photography, like you're not getting better or improving as quickly as you once were? As a photographer, it's super easy to get demotivated, and I believe that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, because in this ever-evolving medium, things are always changing, technology is getting better, and if you're not keeping up with the pace, you're absolutely getting left behind. And that can be super demotivating. So one way that I found to remotivate myself is to actually look at photos from maybe a year or two ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and see how much I've improved over time. Because as you get better as a photographer, it's gonna seem that you're improving slower and slower and learning a little bit more at a time, versus you improved leaps and bounds when you were a new photographer and you were just learning everything because everything was new to you. And now everything is not so new to you and you got the hang of it. So in this episode, we're gonna do just that. We're gonna look at some of my photos from over a decade ago. That's a long time ago. I haven't seen some of these photos in over a decade, so it's gonna be interesting going back and looking at some of these photos basically for the first time in more than 10 or 12 years. And I'm gonna critique these photos, and feel free in the comments down below, leave your critiques, let me know what you think, and absolutely go back, look at some of your images from when you first got interested in photography and see how much you've improved. I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. So without further ado, let's look at some of my old photos. Alright, so this isn't the typical episode. I'm going to leave this one a little more raw and uncut and just kind of let it roll and see what happens. And it's not my usual tips and tricks. It's not my usual tips and tricks video, so I'm not in a rush to go anywhere. Let's just take a look at some photos and see what I think about them after 10 or 12 years. So the first one, here we go, from 2006. This is called Good to Go. I actually duct taped this little flash drive to a tree, and I added the glow in Photoshop, and I thought this would be kind of an interesting idea. I don't remember the real idea behind this. Kind of a cool photo. I love the shallow depth of field. I love the green. I believe I did some selective color in here, removed everything but the green, because that added that little bit of a glow. Interesting photo. It uses the rule of thirds. Looks pretty cool. I still kind of like the idea behind it. I think it was some sort of nature, environmental something. I thought of, the power of nature, something powering this flash drive. I really don't know, but this is when I first got, I believe, a Nikon D80. And I was just playing around with some lenses. One of my teachers in high school actually got me interested in photography. He was a tattoo artist and taught me photography kind of in his spare time when he didn't need to, and just spent that time with me and mentored me to kind of get interested in photography just as a side thing. I never thought I would be doing photography as a job in like a million years. But let's get back to this photo. 2006, that's over 12 years old. I have not seen this photo. Found it on DeviantArt on one of my old profiles. I mean, it's not that crazy interesting. The lighting's kind of boring. It's kind of whatever. That tree in the background, that big dark tree, is kind of distracting and creating this, I don't know, the flash drive and the tree just kind of meshed together. So kind of whatever with this photo. I definitely could do it better. I would get some better lighting. I don't even know what I would do with this photo. Let's take a look at another one of my photos. I called this one I can't pronounce that. Depth of field. I thought I was being creative. It's a dead leaf and shallow depth of field. Yeah, that is a pretty boring looking photo. I mean, I don't know, maybe that would be popular on Instagram today. I kind of got some like lifted red shadows, this dead center leaf, which that's clearly I just centered the composition. I didn't know how to really compose this image. I just threw it right in the middle. See a little spider web there. It's pretty sharp. I took this at, let's see my settings, a Nikon D80, one of the first cameras I ever picked up, one of the first DSLRs I ever used. So I started out with focal length 135 millimeters at f5.6. It really must have been nothing in the background to get that super shallow depth of field. That's a pretty terrible photo. Let's look at the next one. I labeled this one 6 leaves. Yeah, so again, super shallow depth of field. That's kind of all I knew how to do, I guess, to compose an image. Yep, I mean, I like the diagonal that goes across here. It's kind of cool. Yeah, there's not much going on in this photo. Other than this diagonal, it kind of leads your line. This line leads your eye from the smaller leaves up to the medium-sized leaf up to... It's actually cool how that medium leaf, it creates that diagonal. It's a completely different branch. Yeah. I use such shallow depth of field, and this is something so small. It's like a little macro shot, and there's nothing even close to it, so I didn't even need this shallow depth of field. I would have loved to see all these leaves in focus. Yeah, not that interesting of an image. I was just starting out, again, in 2006, over 12 years ago, just playing with a camera, seeing what I came up with. But this was awesome, absolutely awesome to me when I started out. I remember I got this printed and framed. Same thing with my good to go image back from 2006. I got that printed out and framed, and it was the coolest thing to see some of my pictures framed. So, okay, 2006, yep. So this is labeled enough with the plants. So apparently I realized back then I had an issue with taking a lot of plant photos. Yeah. I mean, I see the symmetry. I like it. Definitely went a little bit overboard with the purples, the desaturation, the color grading. A little bit weird. But yeah, no real composition, no rule of thirds. Just kind of leaves. But again, I remember I was so proud of this. I shot this with my Canon HV20 as a video camera. It had the option of also, there's a little button you could take stills. I think they're like 12 megapixels. Again, just learning kind of how to create some shallow depth of field on a video camera. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about this image. Let's see. So now we're moving on to 2007, about 11 years ago. This photo was labeled, or I called it Metallic Decay. See over in the left-hand corner in the butt of the car, I threw in a little watermark of my name in there. And if I remember correctly, I think this was a panoramic of 3 different images. That's why the perspective looks a little bit funky. I took an image on the right side up to that first tree on the right, and then took an image between the trees, and then an image on the left side from the left tree on over to the left. And I just kind of spun around as I took the image. That's why the perspective, the car almost looks like it's at a U shape, like going towards you. Kind of funky. Desaturated. A lot of contrast, almost like an HDR, like a fake HDR. Ugh, I over-edited the heck out of this. And again, no real composition. I have these 2 trees on the thirds of this image, the first third and the second third, and those aren't any sort of focal points. I have a big dark spot in this window. Again, no real compositional techniques. The car is kind of blurry. The trees are sharp, which the trees aren't the subject. I would totally redo this. And then the background's boring. I see trees and dead, everything's just dead. There's no real, this image doesn't say anything to me. It's just kind of boring. So yeah, let's move on. All right, 2007 again. I remember shooting this. This is a little model Mustang. It's actually pretty cool. I used to collect little model cars. Thought they were pretty awesome. Had them on top of a bookshelf. And I remember setting this on the ground. Once again, super shallow depth of field. Let's see what I photographed this at. All right, again, labeled it Mustang. Shot it on a Nikon D80. Focal length. You know what, I'm starting to think these focal lengths are lying to me. They all say 135 millimeter and f5.6, but I think I was shooting on a 135 lens, and that would make sense to a super shallow depth of field, even at f5.6. So that might actually be correct. Got down on the ground. I was trying my hardest to make this look like a real car, to blur out that background, to give any sort of, or not give away any sort of details as to scale. So pretty successful, except for this little sticker of a license plate. I remember I threw some lens flares on these lights to look kind of cool. It looks pretty cinematic, like Bumblebee or something like that from Transformers. Can't tell if I was improving or not, or just kind of playing around. Again, the super shallow depth of field. I'm starting to see some kind of composition now, filling up the frame with my subject. Not too shabby. I actually kind of like this photo. I distinctly remember having this as a desktop background like 10 years ago in like, oh man, this photo might even be older than 10 or 12 years ago. Whew. Let's move on. Alrighty then, so we're moving on to 2008, and I have a little portrait of my dog. When anyone starts photography, you're always taking pictures of your cats or dogs or lizards or whatever pets you have, because for the most part, they'll stand still and they're pretty willing to get their picture taken, unlike people. And I've noticed I don't have a lot of pictures of people in here. I was super shy and I didn't like taking pictures of people at all, and I've definitely overcome that quite a bit. But definitely wasn't shy of taking pictures of my dog. I kind of like this Dutch tilt a little bit. If we're playing with rule of thirds, I have the dog's face kind of a little bit off center. I have a really strong vignette on there. Holy crap. Whew. Yeah, it's a cute picture of a dog. Everybody's taken them. It's nothing special. From 2008, so that is a decade old. Let's move on. All right, so 2009. Yeah, that's a coconut. I labeled this photo Coconut Beach. It is very orange yellow. Holy crap. I don't know if I did that to make it feel like it was on the beach, or the white balance is disgusting. Yeah. The coconut sharp, and kind of on that third, the horizon's kind of in the center. That's kind of boring. If I would redo this, I'd probably do like a wide angle shot. The background is so blurry. Again, shallow depth of field is kind of the only compositional technique I'm using here. I have a centered coconut, and it's just, this photo doesn't say anything to me. The background is so blurry, I can't even tell that's water in the background. Let's move on. Here we go. I kind of like this. Call this Palms. This is from 2009, about 9-10 years ago. I shot this on my Canon 5D Mark II. Remember on a trip to Florida. Getting some silhouettes in there, some interesting lighting. I remember shooting this at sunset. I still have that shallow depth of field, but it kind of works for this. The water's not distracting, but you can tell it's water. Silhouette, black and white. I remember I definitely went through a black and white phase, as I think everyone does. But the palm trees are sharp, and those, I guess, were the subject. I think it's pretty obvious to tell those are palm trees. Just a fun little photo. I would have put it on my Instagram if Instagram existed like 10 years ago. Yeah, I think I can kind of see myself improving like 10 years ago. Let's see what else I have. All right, and this is photo number 10 called Pigeon River from 2009. Yeah, I'm definitely improving. I'm not wrapped around that shallow depth of field anymore or tied to that one compositional effect. The only problem with this photo is there is no real compositional technique. You have the water coming towards you. That's cool. And I tried a little bit of motion blur. I remember taking this photo. It was a river in Tennessee. Yeah, I think it was Tennessee. And I put my camera on a tripod in the river, and my tripod broke. And that was the last time I used that tripod. Kind of ruined my vacation for photography at least. But I tried that kind of slow motion, slow shutter effect, and it kind of worked. I wish I would have done it a little bit more, but it was also a sunny day. And it's hard to do a long shutter on a sunny day, but I see where I was getting better then. And I've learned a lot just by looking at some of my older photos. And some of them are pretty cringeworthy, and it's like, I was that bad. So it's kind of remotivating to go back and look at these, because these are pretty rough. And when I started, I don't remember my motivation behind taking photos. Now I have that motivation to tell a story, to use composition. I know compositional techniques. Again, looking back, I didn't know what composition was, how to use principles of composition to tell that story or emphasize a subject. So I think it's really interesting to go back and look at these photos from 10 years ago. And I highly encourage you to go back and look at your own photos. Even if it's from last year, you'll see a significant improvement. And if not, make sure you're going out there and you're shooting continuously, and you're learning new things to make sure that you are improving. All right, so that is all for this episode. Thank you for joining me, and make sure you leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of my images. I know they were pretty terrible. Feel free to say that, it's okay. And let me know what you thought about maybe some of your old images that you've dug out and taken a look at. and how much you've improved since you've started photography. So if you're interested, I started a Twitter at runandgunyt, and I just thought it'd be a cool way to communicate with you guys, maybe if an episode is gonna be early, late, if I have some thoughts midweek, some tips midweek that don't make it into a video, or maybe you wanna follow me to get that preview or that sneak peek to a new video that's coming up. So just another fun way to communicate. Make sure you guys subscribe down below, hit that like button and that notification button so you're getting all of my newest content. And until next time, get out and go shoot.